Are we following the right approach when it comes to evangelism? Now, what we're trying to get across in this series is that evangelism really is for everyone. Now, we thought this: evangelism might be a street preacher on the side of a street, preaching the gospel, shouting at people. Sometimes there's even this little guilt trip into giving your heart to Jesus. But you see, evangelism is so much more than just that. Now, that style was maybe easier a century ago, in a time where people wasn't so informed, maybe, or opinionated even. But it has become clear that that style and form of evangelism is not as effective as it was. Now, there are various styles of evangelism, but we are going to look at friendship evangelism. And the reason why is because friendship is a commodity that every human being has. Friendship is of such fundamental importance that the Bible tells us in Proverbs 27 verse 17 that as iron sharpens iron, a friend sharpens a friend. And you might wonder, is this form of evangelism even biblical? Did Jesus apply it to his teaching and to his ministry? And he did, in fact. In Luke chapter 19, from the beginning it says, Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. A man was there by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. He wanted to see who Jesus was, but because he was short, he could not see over the crowd. So he ran and climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way. When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today. So he came down at once and welcomed him gladly. Now, all in all, you might say this is a very odd exchange that happened, but Jesus is so strategic in this moment because he chooses to speak with Zacchaeus when everyone can see him, when he was in the tree. And Jesus in this moment chooses to acknowledge him and call him by his name. Now, in friendship evangelism, there is definitely a value that is worth implementing, and that is to know their name, to know someone's name. Now, there's real power in knowing someone's name, if you think about it. Your name is the word that's probably most commonly spoken over you, and you had nothing to do in choosing it, but your name has such value. And I'm certain it meant something to Zacchaeus when Jesus called him on his name that day. You probably saw this in scripture, but Zacchaeus was a tax collector. He was a thief. At this point, being short wasn't his biggest worry. Jesus had absolutely no business to be associated with this man. But yet, what is happening here in this moment is so beautiful. And it just shows what Jesus' mission was all about. You see, regardless of who Zacchaeus was, regardless of what he did, Jesus chooses to recognize this man. He chooses to befriend this man. He's willing to become his friend. And notice in this exchange that they had, that not once did Jesus ever mention to him about being saved, condemning him for his sins. Because he knew that with a guy like Zacchaeus, more condemnation would only alienate him even more. You see, Jesus knew something very, very personal about Zacchaeus, and that was the actual meaning of his name, which meant pure and innocent. Total opposite of what his life story was at that time. Now, practically in evangelism and in friendship evangelism, there are a couple of things that we can do and a couple of things that we can approach that don't make it feel too awkward when we encounter people and when we want to befriend them. The first one is to be present. You see, Jesus gave us a mission in coming to our world, living with us. And that's the mission he's calling us on as well. We need to meet people where they are in their lives. And not just emotionally and spiritually, but also demographically. Jesus came to live amongst people of the world, fully knowing that there will be people from different religious backgrounds. And yet Jesus went to their world, our world, and he caught the fish where they were. I mean, you don't go hunting for fish in the Sahara Desert. You need to be where people are in their lives as well, to be present where they are. The second value is to make the friend. Now, this is quite easy. I mean, I'm sure all of you know someone in your life that is maybe not on the road they are meant to be, on the road that they need to be with Christ. The third value is to break the bread. Now, this is just a simple place where you can really just socialize with someone, to create an opportunity and a platform to really just connect on a social level with a person. And this could be sharing a meal, going to their house, or inviting them to your house. You see, so many people believe bringing someone to church one time is a victory. But inviting someone to your home or a place where you both feel comfortable, I think that's where real friendship, and especially friendship evangelism, can begin. It's important to keep it casual and don't feel that you have to discuss anything spiritual when you are in this encounter or in this social environment with that person. The fourth value is common ground, to cultivate common interest with someone. Think of things you can do together. Find activities to build your friendship. It's important that you don't choose anything that will make your relationship stumble. Sometimes common ground isn't just an activity, but it can sometimes be the realization that you and this person are in the same season or might be going through something similar. The fifth value is to be available. We should listen with compassion sometimes. Sometimes our mistake is to go to someone and to preach to them. And let me tell you that probably 99% of people that's just looking for a friend isn't looking for someone to just preach to them, to judge them. You don't have to provide all the answers. You just have to be in their life, to be present in their life. Consider letting them help you as well. Be vulnerable. That's sometimes better than just being the one who gives all the answers. And the sixth value is to pray. I think sometimes we underestimate the value and the power of prayer. You see, God calls on us to trust Him with all our heart, and He is asking us to do the same with this friend that is entrusted to us. You see, going back to the value Jesus implemented by knowing Zacchaeus' name, there's so much power in that, because the lesson we take out of this is in knowing someone's name. It's not just about knowing who they are. It's about acknowledging who they are. Know them by the identity that was given to them by God, not by the world. Befriending them regardless of their past or their social status. Affirming that they are good enough. That's why it's important to know someone's name. You see, in Isaiah 43 verse 1, it says, I have called you by name, and you are mine. You know, as personal as that verse gets, it's just as personal for someone like Zacchaeus, for someone that's maybe far away, living far away from God. You see, Jesus called them as well, just as He called you. He calls on us to make disciples of all nations. And it starts at friendship evangelism, knowing their name. Gregory Shell says the following: a culture of invitation goes beyond inviting people to events. It is about a community who opens their lives to people that might not ever walk into a church building. Sometimes they might not even accept an invitation to church, but everyone is looking for some form of relationship. A culture of invitation begins with open lives and open homes to people who may be different than those currently engaged in the church. You see, when this moment between Jesus and Zacchaeus happened, we read after that Zacchaeus was saved. Not because of some big message or some big sermon, but because Jesus made the effort to really know him, to befriend him, to know his name, to accept him for who he is. And I think that's sometimes all we need to do. He's not necessarily calling us to evangelize someone at that moment and to get them saved. That's not our job. I want to challenge you today. Write down any name that you know of that is not saved yet. Maybe not on the journey they need to be. And let's give that name to God today. I trust that you have enjoyed this talk, and if you would like more info, more resources, you can go and like and subscribe our YouTube page, and we will see you again next week.